Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new and you like to hear about opinions, reviews, analyses, and ramblings on films, books, and TV shows, be sure to click that subscribe button for more content from me. Today we're doing Film Chat, which is where I talk about films, reviewing them, my thoughts, and the occasional analysis or two. So as I have mentioned in my previous videos, I am doing Barbenheimer today. So this is the event of the summer. I went last week on the 21st, so I did do the double feature. So I'm actually going to call it Oppenbarbie due to the order that I watched them in. And yeah, personally, I think this is the right order if you were planning on doing it as a double feature. So Oppenheimer first and then Barbie. Like, start off with the serious and sad stuff before you chase it down with the camp and emotional stuff from Barbie. So internet hype aside, like, these two films basically appealed to me as both a film major and a film lover. So Oppenheimer had like the seriousness, the editing, and the cinematography, whereas Barbie is very like campy and nostalgic. So for me, like, I personally loved anything that was considered like silly films, so a lot of like cult films, and I could honestly do a whole other video on cult films, but some examples of like those campy cult films that I've loved are like the Scooby-Doo live action, Josie and the Pussycat Dolls, as well as like The Mummy, the 1999 version with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz, not the Tom Cruise one, okay? So like, even though like those films are considered like bad or silly, like personally I still enjoyed them. And like I said, Oppenheimer is obviously like a lot more serious, and it reminds me of the films I watched during my undergrad, and the theories I've learned like helped me to better understand and appreciate the film. So the history nerd in me is very happy, like, you know, like with what I learned in Oppenheimer, but also I am genuinely obsessed with the cinematography for both films. Like, I've done like a lot of videos by now, and I always mention cinematography and the editing because like I always feel so passionately about how the film looks as well as how it's like put together. So there's going to be three parts to this video. So the first one would be discussing my experience with the double feature, and then giving my reviews on Oppenheimer first, and then Barbie. So for my experience, I have never done a double feature at the theater before. So normally when I watch multiple films like in a row, it's at home on streaming like services, so it's more like binge watching than like a double feature. But personally, I will say it is like a very fun experience. So I did dress up for both films to really get in the mood and the vibe. So I've posted a couple of pictures, like one of me like at Oppenheimer, the other one of me at Barbie. And yes, there was like a whole outfit change that happened between Oppenheimer and Barbie. So my Oppenheimer showing was at 2 o'clock, and that was 3 hours, so from like 2 to 5, and then I went with my brother, so we grabbed lunch, we like a late lunch at McDonald's, and then like we both got changed for our Barbie outfits, and then Barbie was at 6:40. So yes, there was an outfit change, but the makeup throughout the day was just consistently Barbie, simply for time management purposes. So when I went to watch Oppenheimer, I was a little tipsy because I was drinking wine, and it was mostly a quiet like experience, like audience wise, because it is like a serious and somber film. So there were a few moments of laughter, but for the most part, like, we were all just watching in like silence and in awe because you know, like, again, it's the visuals are absolutely stunning, and I'll get more to that later in my review of Oppenheimer. So for me, this is also a learning experience because I do not know much about the people who built the atom bomb. So not just Oppenheimer, but his entire team, and the science behind it too. Like, I didn't know, as well as like the moral qualms that they had like after they invented the bomb. So with Barbie, sorry, just as a side note before I move on to Barbie, both theaters that I went to were packed, like they were full. So Oppenheimer was full on like last Friday, Barbie was full like last Friday as well. So with Barbie, again, very different experience because the audience was like laughing along, since it is a comedic film. Like, all the jokes like landed well, and I did tear up a few times. I cried. I didn't just tear up, I cried during the film. All right, so like all the emotional moments landed perfectly. It's also like so fun to watch. So many people did dress up. I mean, there was like groups of families and friends like in various like pink outfits, and I'm not sure if they were in my showing, but I did see two guys like in the lobby of the theater, and they were dressed in like a plum and a pink suit. So I'm like, yes, slay. So like it was just fun vibes all around. So now that I've talked about my experience, let's move on to my thoughts on Oppenheimer. So I will admit this, okay? I will admit this right now. I went in blind for Oppenheimer. I did not watch the trailers, nothing, no promos, whatever. I didn't. I just looked at the poster. That's it. All right. So the only two things I knew going into this film is that he's the inventor of the atom bomb, and that he did say the quote, "I am become death, destroyer of worlds," which I found out was from I found out about it from an episode of Criminal Minds. Like, Criminal Minds watchers, if you know, you know. So I can honestly say that for my overall thoughts, that this is one of the best films I've ever seen. Like, the cinematography and the editing is top tier. So it is 3 hours long. Like, the length is intimidating, but there's so much going on that it genuinely doesn't feel like 3 hours. Personally, like, I was hooked from the opening shot, like, all the way to the last shot. So another thing I did know, actually, I did know one more thing about this film going in, is that there's going to be some colored sequences and then some black and white sequences. So apparently the reason why Nolan did that, again, this is like the other thing I knew, was that it's his way of differentiating between the objective and the subjective, respectively. And then I found out the day after, so I was like scrolling through like TikTok and social media after I watched the film, that the colored scenes were in Oppenheimer's perspective, which makes sense, obviously, and then the black and white are in Strauss's perspective, which personally makes a lot more sense than just saying objective and subjective, at least for me. So I'm not gonna deny, I did get a little confused because of the science, alright? But again, I did mention my brother did this double feature with me. Shout out to Jose. I don't know if you're watching this, but thank you for coming with me for that double feature. So he was also he was sitting beside me, he was explaining the science of the atom bomb and like what they were talking about on screen. So I was like, okay, this is helping me. But also, his explanations help, yes, but even if you didn't have like someone to explain the science to you, the way that Nolan incorporated like images of the stars, the electrons, solar flares, waves, like whatever Oppenheimer is talking about, like he incorporates those shots like in the film, so it helps you like better understand the science and what he's talking about, which God bless, because my brain is not made for the sciences, all right? My brain is for humanities, not for science. So there's also like the editing. Oh my god, I could wax poetic about the editing like all day. So the editing, especially like I'm showing like a montage now from the trailer, it was very reminiscent of Battleship Potemkin. So it's this 1925 Soviet silent drama film directed by Sergei Eisenstein. Yes, his name is Eisenstein, not Einstein. So the reason I bring it up is because he was a montage theorist. So just a little theory lesson here. So remember the name Sergei Eisenstein, because we're going to go back to him in just a minute. So there's another montage theorist named Podovkin, and I'm so sorry, I cannot say his first name, so I'm just going to go by his last name, all right? And his argument is that you need to recognize like the theme or the message in a single shot in a montage. So what he wants to do is to guide the spectator to understanding the message, whereas Eisenstein, on the other hand, he wants to assault the spectator's psychology, so he's more of like a collision of shots rather than a linkage. All right. So the reason that I bring this up is because the use of montage was actually like very effective, like in this film. And like with the close-ups of, there's a lot of close-ups of Cillian Murphy as Oppenheimer, it's very much evoking the Kuleshov effect. I'm going to mention, it's just a side note, that Kuleshov taught Eisenstein, by the way. So for those of you that don't know, the Kuleshov effect is basically deriving the meaning from two or more sequential images rather than a single image or shot. So these close-ups allow you to see the character's emotions, and I'll just describe like the sequence because I actually can't find a long enough clip from trailers. But the Trinity bombing sequence, all right, there's like this extreme close-up of Oppenheimer, and then it's just silence, like just his breathing, and then it cuts to like the image of the explosion, and you feel the awe but also like the underlying terror, all right? So it's safe to say that again, completely obsessed with the editing, like both the visual and the sound, because when those bombs went off, you feel it. this again, we're talking about the Trinity bombing scene, all right? So there's like that pure silence except for Oppenheimer's breathing, and then you get hit by the sound waves like from the bomb. So my brother explained to me that, you know, light travels faster than sound, so that's why like you see the explosion and then there's like this 30 or something second delay, and then you like hear it, you feel it. But either way, like even though like that's like scientifically accurate, it works really well in terms of the editing because it adds to the tension. And again, I've mentioned the close-ups, but the constant use of close-ups on Oppenheimer to show his emotions like in the moment. Like Cillian Murphy, or is it Cillian Murphy? Does anybody know how to pronounce his name? Like genuinely, can you like comment below and let me know? Because I don't know, I've heard Cillian, I've heard Killian. So anyway, we know who we were talking about. So personally, he killed it. Like he brought Oppenheimer to life, and you can really see like his emotions when he's struggling with the ramifications of creating like this weapon of mass destruction. So the only thing I will say that I was kind of surprised by was the nudity / sex scenes with Florence Pugh's character. So it was just unexpected on my end, but like I did know that her character Jean Tatlock like had an affair with Oppenheimer, so like it makes sense, but like honestly, like this is just me being nitpicky. Like that's really the only thing about the film that I was very much like unsure about. Like everything else was like chef's kiss. All right, so I did love the comparison of Oppenheimer to be as like the modern day Prometheus, and you guys know I'm a sucker for any reference to Greek mythology. Love it. So the same way that Prometheus gave fire to humans, like Oppenheimer gave humanity the atom bomb, and both were meant to advance humanity, but both are also used as weapons of destruction. Like you could use fire to destroy, but also fire was used to like, you know, cook stuff. And then there's the atom bomb that was like meant to, you know, advance or like help the allies, yes, the allies in the war, but then it also caused the death of like hundreds of thousands of people, as well as like several other consequences that they did not really foresee, or like they kind of ignored until it was like hitting them in the face. So Barbie and Oppenheimer are like two completely different films, all right, but they both actually wrestle with the concept of humanity, but in a different way. So for me, the way I understood it was that Oppenheimer definitely focused more on a human almost becoming godlike or mythological, right? Because Oppenheimer and his team invented a weapon of mass destruction and death. And though they're not technically the ones who dropped the bombs in Japan, it was still created to destroy and kill like thousands upon thousands of people, which is like bonkers in my opinion. And again, like I just say, like they really should get an Oscar for the editing. Like no joke, guys. Like I'm obsessed with how this film was edited, and like I said, like the cinematography, so like that's the colors, the lighting, the camera angles, it is so stunning, and I think everyone needs to watch it at least once, especially if you're interested in history like me. So like I said before, I have learned so much from this film, and yet afterwards I still went ahead and googled everything like about the scientists involved in the project. And there's also a special mention, by the way, to Emily Blunt. Oh my god, she absolutely killed it as Kitty Oppenheimer. Like, she absolutely deserves an Oscar for her role, like, hands down. So now let's move on to my thoughts on Barbie. And where do I begin? So Simu Liu was not kidding when he said that no one is prepared for what Barbie really is about, because for all the teasers and trailers, like, it's a lot of twists and turns and drops that you were not like expecting. So again, first and foremost, I just want to bring it up, like it is a visually stunning film, like different obviously from Oppenheimer, because like in Barbie, like the colors really pop and the whole vibe is very much like late 90s early 2000s like nostalgia, which was why like earlier I brought up campy like / cult films like Scooby-Doo. Like rules of logic don't apply to Barbie Land, and there is a suspension of disbelief. So the one thing I did not expect actually was the divisiveness on, actually no, I should have said it, I kind of expected the divisiveness on social media. So some say this film is overhyped and a lot of people hated it or thought it was too woke, and I understand that taste in films is subjective, but some people are just downright hating on it because of what they heard is in the film. So like, yes, it's a film by women, made for women. Like, the jokes, the uncomfortable situations Barbie is put in, like, in the real world, like, that's normal for women. I will concede, yes, the plot is a little all over the place. But when was this film ever marketed as something being so serious? Like, it is vibes, guys. Like, that is literally what they marketed. Vibes. And that's what I came for. Vibes. They delivered with the vibes. I'm saying vibes too much, I'm sorry. So yeah, like, it is very comedic and lighthearted, but if some people actually decide to watch the film and use their brains and analytical skills, and actually, it's not just for Barbie, I'm also gonna say this for Oppenheimer, because like, with Barbie, we've been hearing about how it's anti-men, it's feminist propaganda, and then with Oppenheimer, I've been hearing that it is war propaganda, American nationalist propaganda, and I'm like, for both. I'm actually like I read these reactions, and I'm just like, did we watch the same films? Like genuinely, did we watch the same films? Because if you actually used your brain, your analytical skills, your media literacy, you guys are so far off. Like, this is the point that Barbie and Oppenheimer are trying to make, and then some people's points are all the way, like, across the galaxy, all right? Galaxy far, far away. But anyway, what was I saying? I lost my train of thought. So there is more to Barbie than just, like, a feminist, like, propaganda, honestly. Like, yeah, it's superficially, like, a comedy, but, like, the messages are on point, and like the emotional moments are also on point if people actually took the time to watch it carefully instead of just reading the surface. There's the surface, you gotta dig a little deep, and like, I should not be surprised, but I am. Anyway, sorry, I'm ranting about this. I should get back to my actual thoughts. So again, I did like note previously, and I'm gonna keep making this point, by the way, that Barbie and Oppenheimer are two completely different films, all right? And I know there were a ton of jokes about Barbie, how it's gonna be like this like philosophical take on life, and I was like, all right, cool, whatever. But y'all nailed it. Like, again, like, Oppenheimer, I've mentioned, is about humanity almost reaching godhood with like the atom bomb, but Barbie is about embracing the imperfectness that comes with being human, like growing up and dealing with changes and like these feelings that you're not good enough. And on that note, of course I have to talk about this, but America Ferrera's character Gloria, she does this really like, I don't even know how to describe it, like this monologue about how like it's conflicting and it's hard to be a woman because like there are all these rules, all right? So I'm just gonna paraphrase, but some of the things she mentioned was, you know, be flirtatious but not too tempting, be ambitious but not too ambitious, and it boils down to like, how can you know that you're good enough just right as Barbie feels that she's not good enough, all right? And Gloria, I'm gonna try not to get emotional about this, Gloria tells her that she is enough, and isn't that what most of us just want, like just to be told that we are good enough, that we don't have to be extraordinary, we could just be, and that's good enough. So, my god, I'm trying not to cry. Again, I'm wearing makeup, I'm wearing mascara, I don't want to pop a contact, okay? So anyway, the reason I also brought this up, why not only that monologue hit me, not just because, again, like, as a woman, like, I completely understand, I completely get it, but because earlier that day, I started reading this book. It's called Unlikable Female Characters. So what Gloria talks about, like all of these rules, for women, like it's a measure of likability, and society has women equate our likability with our worth. So again, I'm not done reading this book just yet, but it is so interesting to me that I managed to read that part, and then like not even like 24 hours later, I watched Barbie, and then this just like, honestly, this blew my mind. And yeah, so like, coincidence? I think not. So nostalgia, another thing I want to bring up is nostalgia being like a huge theme in Barbie, all right? So we find out that, spoiler, sorry, like honestly, if you were watching this video, you should know there would be spoilers here, so I'm assuming you're watching this video because you've watched Barbie. So Gloria is apparently the one who was playing with stereotypical Barbie because she wanted to connect with her daughter or like I guess she's also reminiscing about the time she spent with her daughter. So for me, I find that very relatable. Like just the idea of going back to things that made you nostalgic and happy as a child when things are getting tough. Because when I was in my, like the last couple of years of my undergrad, when Disney Plus came out, so I was in my second year, and then so from my second year to my fourth year, every time I started to get a little stressed out with midterms, or like, you know, when I was about to graduate and I was feeling really anxious, feeling really stressed out, what did I do? I would go on Disney Plus, I would watch shows that made me happy as a child. Hannah Montana, Good Luck Charlie, Kickin' It, like you name it, and if it brought me joy, I would watch it. And like it was a way for me to kind of like turn off like my anxieties, or like forget about them for a moment and remember a time when I was genuinely happy. And you know, like just the nostalgia really gets you, you know. And this film, like I haven't laughed this hard for a film in ages. Like it's genuinely funny, and I did have an exciting time just being there in the theater. I did love the ad for Depression Barbie, and it had me in stitches when they brought up the BBC Pride and Prejudice. And again, at the same time, like I did mention, I did cry like quite a bit because it is like deep and emotional. And the fact that it had like this really good balance between comedy and the emotional stuff, it's amazing. Like 10 out of 10, I would recommend you watching this movie. So I also want to bring up Ken and Ryan Gosling. Okay, like whoever casted Ryan Gosling as Ken, please give them a raise. Like this is the best casting decision you could have ever made. All right, like give them a raise, because okay, a lot of people have already done like an in-depth analysis on like who Ken parallels in real life, so I won't even get into that. But I gotta say that it was a very interesting take. Like I did read about this, that like the idea of the patriarchy like didn't even enter his mind until he went into the real world. And like his desire on top is not because he resents Barbie, but because he feels not good enough because he is constantly brushed aside by Barbie. So that was really like profound and interesting. It's like a real, like genuinely, I would say interesting, I'm not being sarcastic, like I genuinely mean that it is an interesting take. Although it is hilarious that he thought that the patriarchy meant everything was run by horses, and if only life were that simple, Ken. You know, like I said, I should not be surprised about that little tidbit, but like I said, twists and turns are a thing in this film, so you're gonna be surprised, and I do love being surprised. And I did love the ending, okay, that neither he nor Barbie ended up together, and that he's encouraged by her to try and figure out who his identity is outside of her and her shadow. So for me, I think that that message is very important, like having an identity outside of your romantic relationship. And I don't want to get too preachy about this, but personally for me, it's important to know who you are outside of a relationship, like outside of being someone's partner, because there's more to someone than just being a partner. Like you have your own identity, you are your own person. Again, I'm trying not to be preachy, but I feel like that came off as a little preachy, I'm sorry. Also, the Just Ken song, it will be stuck in my head for the next couple of weeks. I've actually like have it stuck on replay like in my car, so I'm just jamming along to Just Ken as I'm driving to work. So I also do want to give a special mention to Michael Cera as Alan, because he was hilarious and unexpectedly became like my favorite character in the entire film. Like the man just wanted to live unbothered, but he was willing to kick ass when it came down to it. Also, he was like not for Kendom, alright? And he was willing to help Gloria and Sasha escape back to the real world, and he was like all too happy to help the Barbies deprogram each other. I also do want to give a special shout out to Kate McKinnon as Weird Barbie. She's also like, honestly, Alan and Weird Barbie are my two favorite characters in this film, and she's my favorite because she embodies the wise character trope, and also I've definitely had a Weird Barbie in my childhood, so I'm just like, yeah, she reminds me of my Weird Barbie. And so, like, just to finish off my thoughts on Barbie, like, it was straight up just a wild and emotional ride from the beginning. And even though, like, it's a hit and commercial success, I'm not gonna lie, I genuinely feel like Barbie might become a cult classic, like, one way or another, like, a little further down the line. So, to close off this video, I just want to say, Barbenheimer was a blast, guys, and I had a ton of fun watching both films on the same day. So both can't have been any more different from each other, but they did both appeal to me as a film major and a film lover. So Oppenheimer is more somber in tone but breathtaking in its visuals and editing. Barbie, on the other hand, is fun and lighthearted in tone and evokes such a nostalgia in me, yet the messages in this film pack an emotional punch. So they can't be any more different from each other, but they do have some pretty interesting things to say about humanity, creation, and life. So you shouldn't pit them against each other, but you can definitely enjoy both of them because I certainly enjoyed watching both of them. And that's a wrap on Oppenheimer and Barbie. If you've got suggestions for films, books, and TV shows, feel free to comment down below. My next video will be a show spiel. Is it spiel or spiel? Okay, I'm gonna say show spiel. Okay, sorry. AKA where I talk about TV shows and be on season 2 of Heartstopper. Thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome day, and please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. See you guys next time. Bye.